I'm the CommonSensei, and welcome back to another episode of the I'm Just Sayin video podcast. You know, it's been a pretty busy week, and I keep getting questions about how often and when I post content. Normally, it's once a week on Fridays. However, as stories pop up like little whack-a-moles and present themselves, I could post more often. So if you'd like to get notifications on when that content is posted, please check out my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages, or you can hit subscribe to this channel and hit that little notification bell down there, and you'll get those updates. I've got my original energy drink, Cup of Joe, here, so let's fire it up. You know, over the past year, we've seen a lot of tension in issues like race relations and gender, for that matter, in our country. Now, diversity should absolutely be celebrated. It's what makes our country unique as opposed to a lot of other places. The notion that somebody can or cannot get, for example, a particular job based on their color, the color of their skin, or their gender, as opposed to their skill set, is just blatantly wrong, which is why we have laws against that kind of thing: discrimination, sexual harassment, racism, so on and so forth. Which brings me to one of the topics that we're going to talk about today. Now, from the category of woke companies jumping on the bandwagon comes a new policy from United Airlines, in which they say that 50% of all new hire pilots over the next 10 years will be women or people of color. Sounds good on paper, especially when we're talking about diversity. You have a more diverse fleet of pilots that, quite honestly, encompass both gender and race. Like I said, it sounds good on paper. But what else does it say? What it truly says is that if you are not a woman or not a person of color, then you have a 50% less chance of getting hired, regardless of your skill set. Now, we talked about this earlier. This in and of itself is sexist and racist. Now, it really doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or what your gender is. You either possess the skills to fly an airplane or you do not possess the skills to fly an airplane. And here's the real issue. United Airlines, you're the ones that are doing the hiring. So if there is a problem in the hiring process where you're not hiring enough diversity that are qualified to fly airplanes, do you really need a policy to fix it? Or do you just need to change the people that are doing the hiring? Quite honestly, you're in charge of this. And the notion that somebody who is not a woman or who is not a person of color gets a 50% less chance of getting hired in and of itself is completely ridiculous as an argument. Just because you're a white male doesn't mean that you're any less qualified than a white female, a black female, an Asian female, a Hispanic female, or any other person for that matter. You're either qualified or you're not. So I have a suggestion. Hire people based on their skill set and their qualifications, not on the color of their skin or their gender. Duh! Taking one alienated group and trading it in order to alienate a different group doesn't solve the problem at all. In fact, it further divides us and makes the problem worse, whether it's gender or race. And here's the thing about racism. Racism isn't singular to one group. Racism is racism, meaning that you judge somebody by the color of their skin or their race or their ethnicity. It's not singular to black, Hispanic, white, Asian, or anybody else for that matter. You can still be a racist regardless what color your skin is. The same thing goes with gender. Now, what this is truly about is power. And quite honestly, the left is really good, as we said before, on the race card and the gender card. It's divisive. What's the best way to control the masses? Divide and conquer. In fact, Charles Barkley recently talked about this very topic, and he actually made a very good point. Check out what Sir Charles had to say.
Shared that news, how painful it was.
Yeah, but the one thing I took out of that piece was, man, I think most white people and black people are great people. I really believe that in my heart. But I think our system is set up where our politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, are designed to make us not like each other so they can keep their grasp of money and power. They divide and conquer. I truly believe in my heart most white people and black people are awesome people. But we're so stupid following our politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And their only job is, hey, Let's make these people not like each other. We don't live in their neighborhoods. We all got money. Let's make the whites and blacks not like each other. Let's make rich people and poor people not like each other. Let's scramble the middle class. I truly believe that in my heart.
Now, Charles Barkley makes a really good point, and the thing I can really respect about Sir Charles is he tells it the way it is. However, he does say Republicans and Democrats, and the reason he does that is he can't put himself on one side of the aisle or the other, or he knows for sure that cancel culture is going to completely gut him. The left does a really good job, as we discussed before, about playing the race card and the gender card. And let's be quite honest, when you don't have a platform to stand on, you gotta find a way to control the masses. Thus, divide them. Let them fight amongst each other. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about you, and it's not about me. It's not about black, and it's not about white. It's not about Hispanic, Asian, man, woman, or any kind of religion. What it really boils down to is votes. And as I said before, when you don't have any substance or any kind of platform to stand on, you got to find a way to stay in power. And that's how they're doing it. Well, speaking of racial tensions in our country right now, recently there was a TikTok influencer by the name of Maya Eccles who posted a video regarding the murder trial of the former Minneapolis police officer charged for the murder of George Floyd. Now, here's the thing about Maya Eccles. Miss Eccles is a model and a BLM activist, and in this video she talks about how things are going to burn if this former Minneapolis police officer by the name of Derek Chauvin doesn't get convicted. Check this out.
If George Floyd's murderer is not sentenced, just know that all hell is going to break loose. Don't be surprised when buildings are on fire. Just saying.
And Miss Eccles, that qualifies you for the Jackass of the Week award. What do you mean if there's not a conviction that buildings are going to burn? Buildings are already burning. They've been burning since May, and it hasn't stopped. Look at Portland. Look at Seattle. Look at all these big cities that had all this looting. You think the looting was about justice? It was not about justice. It was about looting. Now, certainly not everybody that is protesting is also looting. However, by burning buildings, what did that accomplish? I understand no justice, no peace. I got it, okay? We've heard it a million times. But at the end of the day, you got to give justice a chance first. You don't just start burning down buildings saying, well, if we don't get any justice, there's not going to be any peace. You look at the smug look on her face. Throughout this entire time, she's smirking, she's smiling. She already knows what's coming. Regardless of whether there's a conviction or not, there's absolutely going to be rioting. There's going to be looting, and buildings are going to get burned. And the only reason I'm telling you that is because buildings get burned and cars get flipped even when good stuff happens. When NBA titles happen, when Super Bowls happen. A lot of times, there's rioting, looting, and stuff getting burned in the streets. And that's nothing about justice. The point is, it hasn't stopped. Now, I hope it does stop. But let's be honest, it's still going on. So what makes us think that regardless of the outcome, that it's going to stop? I'm just saying. Now, I don't know how many of you out there are keeping up with this murder trial, but yesterday on Ben Shapiro's podcast, he pointed out that there's a prosecution witness who is a Minneapolis police officer and is also specifically a use of force instructor. And now this is a prosecution witness. Once he was done testifying and being cross-examined, the defense called him back to the stand because his testimony was so damning to the prosecution, they did some follow-up questions. I don't know if you know anything about courtrooms or law. I'm certainly not a lawyer, but it doesn't sound to me like that's a good thing for the prosecution. I mean, if the defense is like, hey, yeah, bring that guy back, yeah, it's probably not a good sign. Either way, it's going to be interesting to see how this moves forward and what these other witnesses and what these other experts have to testify to. Well, hey, I'm running low on coffee, so that's going to be it for me on this episode of the I'm Just Sayin video podcast. I'm the CommonSensei. We'll see you next time.